When it comes to Lostwave songs, many of these songs were recorded by music aficionados. And in those cases, they would inevitably post their samples to one of three websites. What's That Song? Spirit of Radio, or Reddit. And as Spirit of Radio, where case file 102.685 begins. A song posted by Charles B. had an amazingly catchy hook. And while some of the lyrics would be argued over, the hook certainly wouldn't. This led to the song being called Ride This Wave Forever. In looking at Charles B's post on the Spirit of Radio website, he had two other samples as well. Samples that would come to be known as Let the Children Play and Monster of Love. These songs, as a package, would come to be known as... Yes, Charles B3, or what it sounds like when you have a drunk friend who can't figure out how to use the vending machine. Dude, I want the Cheetos. Well, you have to press the buttons. What buttons, man? Charles, B3. Anyway, it was soon learned that these songs had all been recorded off of a Canadian radio station called CFNY, which makes sense because it turns out Spirit of Radio was a fan site for CFNY. Charles himself actually gave us some helpful information. Always nice when that happens with Lostwave songs. All of these songs had in fact been recorded in 1991. We also quickly got unofficial lyrics from Lostwave community member Swior, and I'm going to come back to that. The community started reaching out to anyone we could think of, including longtime radio host Alan Cross, as well as a subreddit, Tip of My Tongue. Then, in October 2021, 10 months after the search had started, we had one answer. The song we'd be calling Let the Children Play was officially Shades of Liberty by band Silent Running. A band that was relatively well known. In fact, in the month that we solved this, we realized that Silent Running songs had been on Shazam for over 10 months, so this is one of those rare cases where Shazam would have been able to solve this song sooner than we. Anyway, equally odd was that the user that had identified Let the Children Play as Shades of Liberty had made the almost inexplicable decision not to tell Charles, and get this, had solved the song almost 2 years beforehand. I mean, seriously? So of course we told Alan Cross we had identified one of these mystery songs, and of course we let Charles B know through comments on the Spirit of Radio website. But two of these songs sat still, unidentified. We had to start asking questions. For Ride This Wave Forever, we'd ask questions like Johnnymetoo asking if this could be a Canadian band, and Terrified Toad replying, well, yeah, it's a Canadian radio station, sounds vaguely Canadian, probably is. We'd hear back from Charles B himself confirming that the DJ that played this song was, drumroll please, Alan Cross himself. Since Alan had been previously contacted, it was quickly established that he didn't know either Ride This Wave Forever or Monster of Love. So we kept going. We posted about this to the Steve Hoffman message boards. Steve Hoffman is one of the leading audio engineers of the last few decades and has been a resource in identifying multiple Lostwave tracks. And Terrified Toad sent an email to the website Rock My World Canada in hopes that they might know something. Meanwhile, reaching out to Alan Cross would continue to turn out to be a great idea, as he would be able to get this song more attention on Canadian radio station CBC. But what was this? Alan thought Ride This Wave Forever's vocalist was British? From Manchester? Oh well, we could look at bands from Manchester, but it seems like finding a needle in a haystack. Meanwhile, Swior thought the diphthong in the word out made this Canadian, but that was far from conclusive. Meanwhile, we were trying to decide whether Ride This Wave Forever was from the early 90s or from the 70s, maybe? We discussed whether Monster of Love or Ride This Wave Forever was online, and famous Lostwave uploader FatBird would chime in with this comment. I assume Monster of Love isn't online. It has such an obvious title. Of course, we've been surprised by titles before. Well, that certainly won't be relevant later. So, while the hunt for Ride This Wave Forever continued, so did the hunt for Monster of Love. User Elion Garcia found songs that fit the time frame called Monster of Love, Monster, and Love Monster, but those were quickly ruled out. We learned that Charles had recorded Monster of Love twice, but his wife may have thrown out the second recording. Though Charles believed the second recording was from a different Canadian radio station, CFMU. User J questioned whether Monster of Love could be about a serial killer, just as Fawn My Mind, case file 00888846, now identified as Feels Like a Wish by Station K, and certainly another case file I'll cover in the future, was long speculated to be about a serial killer. One user suggested a song called Monster of Love by a band called TV Babies, but it wasn't that either. Alan Cross made an updated post, but for unknown reasons, covered both Ride This Way Forever and case file 0397306, CIA, which, again, I will definitely cover in a future video, but for some reason did not mention Monster of Love. More recently, user VisualConfusion suggested that Monster of Love could be Beware of the Monster by Killer Eggs, but that was also quickly ruled out. Well-known Lostwave detective Kurty suggested Monster by People from Earth, but quickly found lyrics that ruled that out as well. And as the case is with so many Lostwave tracks, discussion was had over the vocalist. Could Monster of Love vocalist be male? It sounded like a female vocal to most, myself included, but it could possibly be from a male vocalist. Let's leave it at that for now and go back to the lyrics of Ride This Wave Forever. From the early days of this search, the lyrics were discussed and at times hard to make out. Swior suggested some of the lyrics that seemed pretty on point, with user SktSkf asking if it was Wavestation or Rage Station. Bands are being suggested based on lyrics, such as 12J suggesting Catch My Wave by Time Warp, which was quickly ruled out. Swior thought the title might be Autumn and found a track with that name by Fear Flight, but later determined that it wasn't them. After months of a few people believing it could be a song called Winds of Change, that was finally and definitively ruled out. On February 28th, 2024, a user named Blackhawks, Bulls, and Cubs and Bear 4615 posted on YouTube that he had found a band called Wavestation, a 90s rock band from Canada. It certainly seemed like they'd fit the bill. Except there was one problem. We knew the sample that we had was from 1991, and this album was from 1994. User EvansC015 pointed out that the same vocalist, Buzz Druzetta, was in a band called FAQ, and that band did not sound the same. Then it was pointed out that, I'm not going to read his username again. It turned out long-ass username in the past had claimed the song was on Discogs only to have it be fake, and oddly enough, had also claimed that one of the Lostwave songs that we were trying to identify was by the Beatles. Yeah, it looked like it was back to square one. Except it wasn't. Because on March 4th, long-ass username posted Wavestation album to YouTube, and we had confirmation. Ride This Wave Forever was actually the track Wavestation by the band Wavestation. After a bit in shock and dismay, we determined this album recording was different from the demo we had, which would explain the discrepancy between 1991 and 1994. And then we realized that, well, remember how I told you that FatBird had said that song titles had surprised us before? This one did. Despite the fact that it was in the lyrics the whole time, Wavestation calls out to those who listen. We decided to look more into the band Wavestation, as the Lostwave community usually does when we identify a track. We wanted to understand who these bands were. Wavestation was two brothers, Rob and Buzz Druzetta, or Rob Drew and Buzz Drew. And we started to learn who these guys were, what they looked like, and then we learned that, sadly, Rob passed away from brain cancer in 2012. We also understood now why Alan Cross had thought this track had been associated with a Manchester band. The 1994 release certainly had a Manchester sound to it. And, full honesty here, a number of us thought the demo sounded better than the album version. As we talked more about this band, we went back to Rob and Buzz. And though Rob had sadly passed away, Buzz, whose legal name turns out to be Conrad, was still alive. And of course, someone this musically talented had to be a security and technology lawyer. Yep, a lawyer. And the only way we could find to contact him was LinkedIn, which is where yours truly enters the picture. Somehow, I've become the go-to person in the Lostwave community to reach out to people on LinkedIn. So someone said, hey, can you reach out to Conrad on LinkedIn? And I said, sure, not expecting that an attorney would give me a time of day. Their time is very valuable. And I sort of was like, oh, this guy will probably just ignore me. But then 3 days later, I saw this. When I saw that Conrad was willing to share the details of his band with me and the community as a whole, I was thrilled. And a few days later, I got an email with a 3-page history of Wavestation written by Conrad Buzz Druzetta himself. And I'd love to share portions of that now with you. First off, I do want to thank Conrad, who had no idea anyone was interested in his song. We learned that the demo we had was recorded in 1990 in an apartment with less than thrilled neighbors upstairs, thus the quiet vocals. They sent their vocal to anyone and everyone they could think of, including Paul McCartney, who did in fact send back a very polite rejection letter. And then Hal Harbour, longtime announcer and DJ at CFNY, said that they would love to play their song on the radio and sent them a letter encouraging them to keep playing music. The song went into rotation and got enough playtime that they actually got a royalty check. And trying to grow within the music industry, Rob and Conrad moved to Vancouver. They got together a band, they made a recording space and recorded under the name Wishing Bell, but that would not come to pass. As Conrad himself said, the sound was middle of the road and not original, and adding insult to injury, their existing label told them the studio they built was not zoned properly and couldn't send them any work. Still, wanting to succeed, Rob and Conrad doubled down despite financial troubles, compounded by setting up a properly zoned studio. They recorded several songs for the eventual one album that Wavestation would put out, Mona Lisa, including the album version of the song that we had, Wavestation, which Conrad himself lost something as it was a bit faster and less introspective than the demo version we had all come to love. They started getting interest, finally, and were told not to let anyone else hear the song until one label decided it sounded a little bit too much like Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil. And then once that label decided that, it sort of seemed like all the labels felt the same way, as if they were kind of talking behind the brothers' backs. Conrad and Drew tried to get on any radio station they could, but they struggled to market themselves. And that led to them creating a grunge band. That grunge band from earlier we thought didn't sound like Wavestation. FAQ. They wanted to just have fun. They didn't think it was going to go anywhere, so they went back to record a second Wavestation album, which was going to be called Audio Virus, which would return to the progressive and psychedelic sound that both of them really wanted. But then an industry music veteran told them that they actually really dug the music that was coming out of FAQ and asked them what they were doing to promote the somewhat mild success of FAQ in the college market. And while it did sell into Germany and Japan, they didn't use their legal names when they put it out, so they didn't register it, and they were unable to collect royalties. And when it got time to go back to recording the rest of Audio Virus, they just didn't have the finances and decided to call it quits. But then, in 2008, Rob and Conrad got to talking again, spurred by advancements in the music industry, like looping and a lot of other things you can do with technology that you couldn't do back when they were doing music. They decided they were going to try to make Wavestation's second album happen again. And they started work on it until 2010, when Rob was diagnosed with brain cancer. Well, that was yet another death knell for Wavestation, because it was 2 years later in 2012 when Rob would unfortunately pass away from brain cancer. Conrad was left reeling for years. In his own words, it felt like he was missing half of himself. It would be years later, in 2019, when he decided to honor his brother's memory and record a tribute album with some of his earliest bandmates. And that takes us to today, 2024, for anyone watching this in the future. And he said that this summer he's going to get back up to Canada and try to send me the stuff that he worked on that we never got to hear. And if and when that does happen, I'm going to post it here to this channel. I've committed to Conrad that it's going to be monetization free. But I would recommend that you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're one of the first people that's aware that this awesome offer that Conrad has made has come to fruition. So with all that, only Monster of Love remains unsolved. If you have thoughts about Monster of Love or Wavestation, or questions that you want me to ask Conrad, I hope that you leave them in the comments below. And as much as I hate to say this, please like and subscribe for new creators such as myself. A like and a subscription make a world of difference. And if you really enjoy this, I would love it if you shared it with your friends too. Until next time, I'm PersonOfDistraction, and I'm now listening to